Hello there, and welcome to Sync Music Matters, a podcast that explores the beautiful relationship between music and the moving image. My name is Jim Hustvedt, and I'm your host on this journey, as each week I seek to understand the people and the process behind the best music in TV, film and games. I'm talking to composers, but I'm also talking to editors, music supervisors, directors, and anyone else who's involved with the synchronous process of pairing audio and visuals. Hello listener, welcome to another episode of Sync Music Matters. In a moment, I'm going to be chatting to music supervisor Paulina Marquez about how she created the soundscape for Season 2 of The Night Manager, starring Olivia Colman and Tom Hiddleston. We chat about how she primarily used Latin music to create the show's musical identity, how she blended vintage orchestras with contemporary artists to try and capture the authentic energy of Medellin and rural Colombia. Paulina talks about how, for her, an understanding of emotion and narrative is often more useful than general musical knowledge, and also how making bold and irreverent creative choices has transformed her work. She talks about her musical influences as a child, including a love for Led Zeppelin, the Mamas and the Papas, and Jarvis Cocker, and we also debate whether toilet paper should fall forwards or backwards. If you ever thought either way, please do get in touch with the show and let me know. Anyway, grab yourself a jammy dodger and a cuppa. Paulina, thanks for joining me.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
A pleasure. So, cast your mind back, if you would, to a young Paulina growing up on the streets of Mexico City. If someone had asked you, what would you like to be when you grow up? What would have been your reply?
I wanted to be a rock star.
Okay.
I love to sing.
Like many.
Yeah, I love to sing, but I didn't just want to sing. I wanted the whole rock star thing, I wanted to travel, I wanted the concerts, that's what I wanted to do.
And how old were you when you decided you wanted to be a rock star?
I don't know, very, very, very young. Like, from when I was very little, from what I can remember.
Okay. And did you play and sing in bands?
No, I played violin for a while. I've always sang. I love to sing. The only time I tried to start a band, it disintegrated before even starting it because it was a boyfriend of mine and me, and then another friend of mine with his girlfriend, and we both broke up before the first rehearsal.
Oh, it's like Fleetwood Mac, except you guys broke up before the band got started, whereas they waited until they were well established.
So it never happened.
Oh man, what was did you have a name for the band?
No, of course not. We only had like one rehearsal, and then it died. So we had nothing, only the hope of it.
And what music would you have been playing if it had happened?
Rock. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, we'll get on to sort of influences, musical influences a bit later. But okay, so from this dream of becoming a rock star, the band disintegrating before it even started, what was then your progression? How long before you started entertaining other career choices that weren't rock star related?
I mean, music was never, that was a dream as a child, but I always sang. But when I thought about something to study, I never thought about studying music. I came from maybe a more like traditional, upbringing. And then I studied communication. I worked on different things. And I eventually ended up in music later on in life, once I've already had a couple of jobs. I was like in a moment in my life where when I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And then I remember just hanging out one afternoon with a friend of mine, and I of course surrounded myself with a lot of musicians back then, since always. And then he was like, well, you should totally work in music. You love it. You go to all the concerts, like all the bands, that's what you do like the whole time. And I didn't actually know that one could work in music without having had a career in music. So I was like, but I didn't study music. What can I do? And then he was like, well, you could be an A&R, you could be a music supervisor, you could be, many things. And then looking for a job, he introduced me to a friend of mine who eventually ended up being my boss for many years. He had a music studio, MCO, in Mexico. And I started there as a music producer. It was a very big studio. They had, we took care of everything related to original music, sound design, field recording. It was like pretty huge. And I took care of like coordinating all that. And also about the music clearance. So the first thing that I learned, I think, when I got in the studio, the first thing that I got was a copyright law book. And my back then boss, he told me, like, you have to read this. And then he explained me everything related to music clearance. So I took care of the music clearance. But obviously we had all the time people coming in the studio because we did advertising, we did films, and we would have projects all the time, very different types of projects. And there would always be directors and producers looking for songs. And I would always go and start, proposing songs. It was not my job to do it, but I actually enjoyed it. So I was like, maybe you could listen to this track. It's very nice. And it worked, whenever I sent like proposals out, people would like them. And that's how it started. I fell in love with it before even starting on it. So yeah.
It's interesting that you were sending out music proposals and people really liked it. Because I often wonder with music supervision whether a music background is necessarily. And obviously you had a love of music, but you were still able to understand what music worked well with different visuals, even though you hadn't had a traditional musical education.
Yeah, because I think what has to do with your background, with your understanding of music, with everything that you've listened in life is one thing. But I think another very important thing about music supervision is narrative and emotion. It's consuming films. Actually, I watch a lot of cinema since I was a kid, and I'm a big film fan. And also the kind of sensibility each one has, And I think that's what really puts like some kind of signature in the work that each music supervisor has. I mean, obviously, at the end of the day, we're still working towards a director's vision. We're working to make it happen. It's not our vision; it's someone else's, but it comes accompanied with our vision. But I mean, what I'm trying to say is that at the end of the day, we're providing a service. Okay, so we don't do obviously what we want to do all the time, but at the end of the day, I think people that work as music supervisors were very passionate about what we do, and we do try, to transmit and to sell the way we see things, and to make it work the way we'd like it to work.
Yeah, and I suppose in that sense, it's very similar to. But as a composer, it's very much a collaboration with the director. You're working together, and yes, there is a vision for it, but hopefully. And as a supervisor, obviously, you bring your perspective, which is unique to you, which has been shaped by all the, and we'll come on to this, the different music that you've consumed and your background and what have you. So obviously at MCO, it sounds like you had a sort of kind of natural inclination towards music supervision. Is that when you decided to leave MCO to go on to work on music supervision exclusively?
Yes, I mean, I worked there for almost 5 years. I think most of my best friends come from there. It was short but pretty intense and pretty cool, and I learned a lot there. But I had the opportunity to work on my first film when I was there. I remember the time I signed my first contract as a music supervisor. I arrived to meet Hector, who's one of the directors of MCO, and I told him I had taken a film, outside the studio. And I cried, and he was like, "Why are you crying?" And I was like, I'm so afraid, because you sign that anything that happens is your responsibility. And I mean, that's a big responsibility. So I was like, and he was like, you can do it.
So it wasn't that you felt like you cheated on him. It was just...
No, I was pretty open. I was pretty open with him, I was telling him, I have this opportunity, I want to do it. He knew that. But when I signed, I was like, and he was like, no, you can do it. It's going to be fine. So it happened. And it went pretty well. It was a pretty special film for me. The process was amazing. I proposed the score composer, and it was pretty cool because the score composer was Martin Tulin, who is, I think he's Swedish. But if you look for it online, he says he's a Mennonite from Mexico. It's pretty cool.
He's a what, sorry?
Menonita. Menonita is, these people in Mexico that are very blonde that sell cheese.
Oh, okay.
But he's Swedish, so she's very blonde. And he had a band called, I forgot the name of the band now. I was a big fan. And he had never made a score. And I was like, you're going to be amazing. We can do it. So we would get together and watch the film together and, really work like the two of us like this. And it was a very beautiful experience. And after that film, when I got my second film, I was like, okay, I'm going to do this full on. And so I quitted the studio and I started as a freelance. And I've been a freelance since then. So it's been a while.
I know are there any...
The Fancy Freeze. Sorry for the interruption. I remember the name of the band.
The Fancy Freeze.
The Fancy Freeze.
Okay, cool. I'll try and find them and link to them in the show notes. Can you remember, so going back to those early films that you were working on, were there any kind of key things that you learnt about supervising or working with other people that you think have continued to serve you over the years?
From those first films,
and they may have come from mistakes. I think often the biggest learnings do come from mistakes.
I think the mistakes come from MCO.
Yeah, of course.
No,
yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I think that the biggest learnings, I think that at least that come to mind, actually start in Spain, much later. I mean. In Mexico, all the films that I did in Mexico, I had been working within the film and the music industry already for 5 years. So it was not actually new for me, the whole process. And actually the way when I work on the music supervision of my projects, for example, I edit the songs. And I work with the image because I come from a music studio. So I'm not used to only sending, the tracks, but I'm used to, I'm used to working with the image. So I already had a previous experience. I remember now that I'm talking, I remember a film, one of the first films that I did. There was not a big budget. And I decided to musicalize the film with reference songs to give an idea of what I wanted to achieve, Biggest mistake of my life. Biggest. Because obviously the director saw that and he was like, it's so amazing. But he couldn't pay for it, of course. And I was like, okay, we're talking about a sound reference. We're talking about, picking out of these, 15 songs, because it was a pretty musical film. Let's pick out maybe 3, and the rest we're going for this sound, Never done that again. So something I learned there is don't propose anything you don't think you can clear. We can't really know. It's a bit of a weird job because I can't guarantee I'm going to get an approval on a song. I can't guarantee the fee I'm going to get the approval for, and I can't guarantee the time frame in which I'm going to get the approval. So I can't guarantee anything, basically. And I have to keep people kind of like understanding this. And so basically what you do with time is you learn to kind of like calculate how much you could offer for someone, how much it could cost. Sometimes, I mean, maybe 80% of the times you're right and 20 not really, or something like that. But that makes the job complicated. I mean, not as easy as other jobs, you know. But definitely, even if you can't guarantee how much it's going to cost, a big life lesson is never propose something you don't know you can't clear. Because people get in love with it. They don't actually understand, you know. Even if you tell them it's only a reference, it's to give you an idea. Once they see an image, we're so visual, you know, that once we see something we like, with a song that works, we're done. Like, it's that.
That's interesting because you have exactly the same issue as a composer, because if
the temp music,
the temp score, the director sees it hundreds of times, becomes attached to it and wants music like that, and anything that isn't almost identical. So as a composer, you can then no longer be creative and explore something. You're essentially sort of having to copy something else. But I never thought that a similar thing could happen with music supervision, where
I actually decided to, so whenever I can, obviously, because, I mean, at this stage, I work a lot with score composers that have been doing this for a very long time, no? And they have their way of working. But back then, when I used to work with composers that didn't have that much time doing things, and that were a bit more flexible, I arrived to a point where I would actually ask them to not use temp music. So what we did was actually sitting with the director with enough time in the pre-production to kind of like break down the characters and the musical, you know, like the music themes, and to work on like pretty elaborate, you know, like long music themes that they would then send to the editors, and the film would be edited from original music, because it's true, like directors get attached to temp music, and composers get less creative with temp music, because once you have a reference that really works, it invades your mind. It's kind of like, I don't know, that's what I feel.
Yeah, you can't unsee it if you've seen it and it works really well. Oh, okay, great.
Yeah. So even if you don't want to, you can end up, you know, like going to a very similar place. So yeah.
So the lesson is to ensure that what you're proposing is within a certain ballpark of there's a feasibility in being able to clear it, rather than
yes, that was an important one to learn.
Is that the one that you learned later on in Barcelona? No, that was where you learned it.
No. Later in Barcelona, I learned other things. I can't tell all of them.
Okay. Yeah, just the safe ones.
But no, I've also, I don't know, when I started, I remember it was, but I don't know if this is, I think this is something you learn, or perhaps it's just that you feel you're more mature, like within your work, and you dare to do like different things, and obviously you have more experience in how to read a situation, a character, a story. But I remember when I started, like, my soundtracks would be very homogeneous, you know, like they would all be within a certain sound and certain style and certain aesthetic, and they would, I mean, it would look very nice, it would be very nice. But now I think I'm bolder, you know. Now I think I really go for like bolder choices and different things, and I care much less about, you know, like disrupting and doing things that sometimes people are just going to be like, what are you doing here, Paulina? And I am going to give I think that as long as I have a reasoning for it, that it comes from somewhere, you know, then I'm going to do it. I'm going to try it out. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, you know. But I think, I've learned that also with the years.
And do you think sort of being slightly more irreverent and making bold decisions has sort of led to greater success?
I don't know. I don't know if it has to do with that, but I think it's much more fulfilling.
Okay.
And I think you can get like, I don't know, it makes me prouder of my work. I'm happy with what I'm doing now. It doesn't mean that I wasn't happy back then with what I was doing. And when I listen to the soundtracks that I did back then, I still like them a lot, but I feel pretty good with how I'm working now.
What was it, do you think, that led to you being a bit more bold and caring less if it didn't work?
Well, age for sure. That must be. I'm 45. So, I mean, to start with, in general in life, I care much less about what people think.
Yeah, as you get older, you start giving less of a shit, don't you, about what people think?
Yeah,
in your 20s, it's really important. 30s, you're like, yeah, and then 40, you're like, oh, fuck it, I don't care.
45 is like, no, I don't care. I don't care. I don't have to make up an excuse. I don't want to go, or, I think that, like the fact that you're not trying to please anyone. I think the fact that, I think age, but I think it's also, experience. I think at the end of the day, proposing music, coming out with a creative concept, developing a creative concept for a project, it really implies analyzing, a story and their characters, and it implies starting a dialogue, a creative dialogue with a director, and I think the more and more you work, and the more and more inputs you also listen to, the more directors you work with, and composers you work with, and artists you work with, you have so many inputs from different people and different perspectives of how they can read an image and how they can work with an image, and it enriches you, And I think it has to do with that also. And obviously, probably also with your musical background, for example, no? And that shows, like I was mentioning like a couple of days ago that I think the older I get, the older my music research gets, like my personal, obviously I go and I listen to music, all types of music, and I have an assistant that is amazing, that we're now starting to try out her, like also sending me music for the creative proposals. She's 15 years, I don't know, like she's younger than me, which is important, I think, because I am listening to each time more very old music, and I really enjoy it. I like, right now I'm in the mood of like going and getting my vinyls and setting my sound system and my like vinyl player, I don't know how to, turntable, and I'm really in that moment. And you can actually see it in the projects that I'm working on. I mean, the Night Manager, for example, it didn't really need to have like very vintage music, but it's full of like pretty old music, and you can find it like in the different projects that I'm working on here and there. Every time more, I'm putting like very old music everywhere. So I think it comes with you also. But I think also like having a broader scope, each time of music, it also drives you to make bolder choices.
That's probably a good opportunity to go under the skin and chat about the Night Manager. Under the skin. Yeah, tell us a bit background. How did this project come around? How did it come about?
Well, I had already been working with the post-production studio in a couple of projects for Netflix that I really enjoyed. So The Night Manager is a co-production between Spain and the UK. There are many production companies involved. So the post-production company proposed me as a music supervisor. So that was, at the beginning, obviously, there was a non-disclosure agreement and they couldn't tell me what the project was. They only needed to know my availability, and, I was there. I was very curious. And when they told me what the project was, I was like, It's so exciting. I like it. I was super excited. I mean, for me, it didn't only represent like, you know, opening myself to a totally new territory, which is like very interesting work-wise. But also it was like, I'm such a huge fan of Olivia Colman. Like it's like, wow, I love her, you know? So when I thought like, oh, you're going to be like, you know, music supervising a project where she's seen, I was so excited.
Did you get to meet her?
No,
No,
I didn't. There was a premiere in London, and I didn't. I was about to go to Mexico for a month, and I was like, I'm gonna take that weekend to spend with my daughter, so I didn't do it. But yeah, it was very exciting for me. But it was also, you know, it took a lot of time for things to settle, for me to get on board in the project. So I actually started pretty late in relation to how I normally start. You know, like music supervisors usually start in films from the preparation stage, you know, to kind of like give an approximate estimate of how much a project is going to cost. And in series, we start in the pre-production, because we need to organize, we need to send, you know, like, I don't know, we need to check if there are any playbacks, we have to prepare if there are any songs that need to be cleared beforehand, etc., etc., etc. And in this project, it didn't happen. So I started out when a couple of episodes had already been, we didn't have a final cut, but we did have a first cut, no?
What, the first 2 episodes?
Yeah, I think so. I don't remember exactly, but I think, yeah, maybe the first 2. So obviously, yeah, it's starting late in a project.
So the first episode, is there much supervision then? Because it's kind of before we get to Cartagena, before we get to Colombia.
Yeah, so you open with a Bilur, a track when they're arriving in Syria to check if Roper is dead. Yeah. So that one from a sync agency from London, pop-up music. And then you have what's his name?
Tom Hiddleston.
The one that dies. So you have the birthday, the 60th. No.
Oh, Rex. Rex.
Rex, yeah. You have Rex's party. So you have first the wife, you know, that she's listening to. There was a brief. So this was funny because when you music supervise something from different regions, it's important to understand that each country has their musical memory, has their identities. I don't remember the radio station. So the director, Georgie, she told me, like, you know, the wife, we want her to be listening to a hit of this radio station in the UK. I don't remember the name, but you know, it has to be a song like she thinks is like very cool, but it's not necessarily. I mean, maybe for her age, you know. And we ended up landing a track that I really love, that is Everlasting Love, and she's listening in the radio. So that's when she's preparing the party. And then you have the party. You have a couple of songs in the party. So yeah, you do have music, and then you have Roxana in the restaurant. I have it all in my head.
Oh, of course, yeah. There's a restaurant. I think it's funny because that music, it doesn't register, but it's obviously it's there.
Yeah, because it's diegetic, of course, and it's just there. But you have the restaurant, then they go to the hotel, and you have like 4 tracks in the hotel when they're talking and he's explaining her, you know, like Rex is dead and whatever, because you have the sound design. So you have like 4 songs there. You have a reggaeton and you have like some dubstep or something like that.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you go to Colombia on the second one.
Yes. And then, am I right in thinking that you kind of built the musical identity almost entirely around Colombian artists for the rest of the show?
Yeah, mostly. I mean, there were a couple of songs that had already been used in the shooting, which are Willy Colón and Ausencia y el Ratón, which are amazing in episode 2 and 3. So that one, we kept them. I'm a huge fan. They work amazingly. So we used both of them. And all the rest, I mean, I have a couple of artists that are not Colombian. We have La Lupe. La Lupe, which is like one of my idols. I completely adore her, and I was so happy to be able to clear her. But the rest from there is mainly Colombian, all of it.
Yeah. And am I right in thinking that you've sort of gone with different there's quite a sort of vintage feel at times, but you've got for sort of Medellin, you've gone for sort of more vintage orchestral stuff, and then you've scaled it down for when we've got scenes in the jungle or the hacienda. Tell us a bit about that, about that kind of what that juxtaposition brings to the table.
Well, the idea, so basically what I did when we started was working on this inspiration playlist, which is what I do for all the projects that I work in. I listen about the project, and I started, like listening to music and just putting everything in a playlist, but what I really wanted to do, so there was not this idea of separating these two spaces. What I really wanted to do was to get like this very sleek and very classy and very elegant, kind of cool feeling to Colombia, no? And as I already mentioned, I'm a big vintage music listener. I love like Latin orchestras. I really like them. I'm a big fan of Olga Guillot, Toña La Negra, La Lupe, Lucho Bermúdez. So I thought it was ideal, It was very important for me to really have, I know that it's not like we're shooting a film in Mexico, so we only have Mexican music, because I know it's not how the world works, no? We listen to music from around the world, but it was very important for me to have mainly Colombian artists. And I felt like the Latin orchestra and this vintage sound really gave it like a very, really aligned with the characters, It aligned with Pine, it aligned with Teddy, and it aligned with the identity of the series a lot. And then when we go to the jungle, the trio music makes it more. That was something that came from editing, which was amazing. It was like separating these two spaces. And I had sent a lot of trio music. This Teddy, he's half Mexican, and he has this issue with the family, He has this issue with Roper recognizing him so I sent a lot of songs.
He has a few issues, doesn't he? It's a pretty nasty piece of work.
Yeah, he has a thing. And I sent these a lot of proposals of trio music performed by Colombian artists, but those are a lot of songs we used to listen to in Mexico when I was young. It's like songs that we've listened to always. So it worked pretty nicely. I'm very happy with the result. And then you have a lot of like music surrounding for sound design, but like the main parts is like the vintage orchestra, like for the first part of Colombia, and then you have like the trios.
And then there's also quite a bit of sort of modern pop music as well.
You have some, but not. You have a couple of, maybe in a couple of stores, and then you have some songs. Yeah, for sound design, you have a lot in the streets.
Okay.
You have hip hop with the bad guy that is always watching out for this guy from Colombia, and you had a lot of different styles of music, like more modern ones in the streets for sound design. Yeah.
And am I right in thinking that you actually edit the audio yourself?
Yeah, but there was not much editing here, but yeah, I do that. So whenever I send a proposal. No, there was some editing, yes. I send a proposal of, so I send a QuickTime reference of the song with the edit that I want to propose, and then I send the file so they can integrate it. And then I send, a bounce of my edits so they can use them if they decide to use my edits. Yeah.
And when you talk about that process of going through and creating, playlists of references, are you doing that whilst watching the visuals, or at any point are you sort of doing that from script or just from ideas of scenes? No, it's just
I do that since the first moment we talk about the project.
Right. Okay.
So when I talked to Georgie the first time, the director, she said, she was very like talking to me about the shooting in Colombia and how she was amazed like by the liveness, of the city and the music all around, and she wanted to really be able to capture like this, like liveness. I don't know how other way to put it, no? And then from that conversation and from the series that I had already seen, because there was already a previous season, I started working on that. But I do it, like, for example, I have a project now. I think it's the longest inspiration, like, playlist I have. I don't know how many songs that has, but it's like hours and hours of music, because I started since we started. Since the first time we talked about the project. So that was over a year ago, because obviously to work on a project like this, at least a year you take. And then you start your inspiration playlist, but every time you listen to a song that you're like, this could fit in The Night Manager, this could fit in Las Azules, you put it there, And then it's good because for a next project in which you need, Latin American psychedelia from the 60s, 70s, you have this, and you go back there. But yeah.
Are there any particular tracks that you love and have used across multiple projects?
Fíjate que not many. I haven't cleared, I try to avoid, repeating, but I think I've cleared a track maybe a couple of times. For this specific project that I've loved, or for the projects in my life?
Just in life, was there sort of do you find yourself going, but I do love that track, and it would, even if it obviously it would work within the scene, but you sort of going, but that is such a good one. I could find something else, but it's so good.
I know. Híjole, I don't know. I love so many tracks. It's hard to say one,
Well, that's probably a good time to start getting a taste. So I always think that during our, from the age of maybe 10 through to 20s, the music that we listen to, or the film, the TV that we're exposed to, it goes some way to shaping us creatively and what we like. And I'm interested to know what other particular bands or even specific songs which you remember hearing for the first time and thinking, and it was a game changer. You're like, wow, I've not heard anything like this. And you feel it was a seminal moment.
Well, a while ago that you said this, I thought, before talking about particular songs, I think that for me, I've interacted with very musical people in my life, and I think people come with their music, So there's been many people in my life that have actually given me their musical universe. So I've had very big inspiration from many different perspectives. So it's a very big mix. But I do remember, one of my super tops, it's Dream a Little Dream of Me by Mamas and the Papas. I remember the first time I listened to that song, I was like, oh my God, what is this? This is so beautiful. And I still love it. It's one of my super all-time favorite tracks. I remember Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You by Led Zeppelin. It's a song that I hear too, and it's there's no time I don't cry when I listen to it. I love it. ¿Qué otra canción? Where Do You Go to My Lovely? Where Do You Go to My Lovely? That song, I love it. And I remember when I read Jarvis Cocker book. I'm a huge fan of Jarvis Cocker and Bob. I love them. And he has this book when he's cleaning his attic. And he's a collector. He collects a lot of things, and he uses the book kind of like to tell you about Pulp's story, like how it started, and a bit about how he is himself. And he talks about the first time that he listened to this song, and he talks about how he felt these goosebumps when you listen to a song that makes you really excited, that you feel like the whole that I feel that when I listen to a song that I love. And I was like, oh, we felt the same.
And that's Where Do You Go To? Who did that originally? Where Did You Go To, My Lovely?
Peter, I forgot his name now. Peter Stansted?
Yeah, not Stansted, that's an airport. It's like that though, yeah.
I love Jeff Buckley.
Jeff Buckley?
Really love Jeff Buckley. Híjole, es que there are many, I don't know, but yes.
Some quite guitar-led music in there.
I love Radiohead. A lot of guitar music. Yes. I love the Velvet Underground. Yeah, very guitar-based music, yes.
And you mentioned before the people bringing music into your life. Was that people in your family exposing you to that, or was it
from everywhere? I come from a very musical family. Like in my house, there was always music. So my mother would listen to a lot of protest music. She's a sociologist, so she used to listen to Silvio Rodriguez, Pablo Milanés, Joan Baez. I know she listened to Cat Stevens, Bob Dylan, We Shall Overcome. Joan Baez, I already told her. But she used to listen a lot to the Beatles also, Elvis Presley. So all of that came from my mother. My dad used to listen a lot to Mexican rock and roll, like from the 60s and the 70s, and a lot of mariachi and trio music. And but then my mom, remarried with a guy from Uruguay. He's a big jazz fan. He listens to music a lot, like very loudly, tango, and I don't know, like that. I was very big on. So I'm 45 again. There was a massive thing in Mexico called rock en tu idioma. So big on Argentinian rock, like Almendra, Calamaro, ¿cómo se llama? Charly Garcia. I love them. So there are like different, times. I was big on trip hop at some point, like very big on trip hop or 80s music. So it's like times in your life and people, and at the end of the day you have like this big like mix of...
It's like a tapestry of different...
Yes, like a quilt, like an American quilt. A musical quilt. Yeah, totally.
And you mentioned earlier as well that you used to watch a lot of film. Are there similarly some particular films that you remember seeing?
Cinema Paradiso. I love Cinema Paradiso. When I arrived to Italy, to the town where they shot the theater, I started crying. I called my mother. I was like, I'm in the town. And she started crying too. So we were both like super excited. I remember Pulp Fiction. Pulp Fiction like really marked me in my life. I was like, what is this? I remember, I'm a big fan of Wes Anderson. I remember when I saw the Darjeeling Limited, I loved it. Yeah. And I love Totoro. Totoro.
You mentioned Pulp Fiction. I think the soundtrack to Pulp Fiction is particularly noteworthy.
The soundtrack is so cool. TV, I was very big on MTV.
Oh, okay.
Back
so
in
just
the
watching
day.
music television. Yeah.
I was big on MTV. I watched The Simpsons a lot.
Danny Elfman did the theme tune for The Simpsons.
The same, so that still happened, no? How many years has that happened? Like, so many. Like, it's
I don't
unbelievable.
know. I used to be a huge fan.
Like, yeah, I know. No, I haven't seen them in ages, but I used to watch them, like, a lot. But, yeah.
Well, I think probably that's maybe a good time to move on to the quickfire questions. This is the the bit that I mentioned at the beginning, a caveated. So first one's an easy one. Just break her in gently. What's your favourite cookie?
I don't really eat cookies.
You don't eat cookies?
But if I had to choose, I would probably say an Oreo. But I'm not a sweet person, I'm Mexican. I like chili. I like tajin. I like, I don't know, Mexican candies, not really cookies. But yes, maybe an Oreo.
So what's a Mexican candy then? What's the typically?
It's spicy. We use a lot tamarind, tamarindo. For example, un pelón, un pulparindo. They're amazing. Una tamarroca. They're really good.
Pulparindo. That sounds like it should be like octopus.
A little bit, yeah, a little bit. But they're really good. So yeah, I have a spicy palate.
What do you do to let off steam?
I dance and I do yoga. Yeah, and I like to go and walk in the country, in the nature.
What dance do you do?
Whatever. I love dancing salsa. It's like my favorite, but I can go and dance techno and I really enjoy it too. So I love techno also. So I'm flexible.
What would be the main dance kind of form in Mexico? Would that be salsa?
No, there are many different. You have the son jarocho, we dance salsa, we dance cumbia, but no, zapateo.
What is a little known fact about you? Something that people might be surprised to hear.
It's a weird thing to say, but it's the first thing that came to my mind. When I go to a toilet, and the paper is looking not towards you, but towards the wall, it annoys me. Like, I can't turn it around.
So it has to go down the back.
So it goes out, like facing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have to turn it around, or you need.
No. I don't need to. I don't have like an OCD. It can be like that,
Okay.
but it annoys me. Like if it's in my house or somewhere I can change it, I will do it.
Yeah. Well, Paulina, I don't know if this is going to make you think less of me, but I'm the other way around. I want it to be coming.
Never invite me to your house.
No, but the thing is, if I go to someone's house and it's going the other way, I will switch.
You change it.
I will switch it. Yeah.
No.
I know that they'll switch it back. I assume that they'll switch it back. I assume that they care enough to switch it back, or that they don't care. But
I don't think that many people care about these
but we
things.
do. Okay, that's fun. I like that. What scares you?
What scares me? Getting old, growing old. I think so.
And what about growing old scares you?
I don't know. But it kind of scares me a little bit. I mean, not at this stage, but like whenever I see, I think maybe if I grow old in the way that I would like to, because I'm trying to convince my friends to go very hippie and let's, buy a field and just like build some houses and grow all together and, switch nurses, like,
okay.
like, ¿cómo se dice? Share nurses, that would be amazing. Yeah, sure. But, I don't know, I see, old people growing old and having their loved ones like dying, and I don't know, it kind of scares me. I'm not afraid actually of, dying, but like growing old kind of does.
And losing mobility or even
losing your memory, especially like your mind. Maybe if my mind is in its place, I'm fine. But yeah.
It certainly sounds like, with the yoga, you're doing things to try to keep yourself physically fit. So.
Yeah, well, I had quite a good time in my early years, so I don't know.
Okay, so...
Maybe yes. Maybe it works.
Maybe you stopped just in time. And the final question is, what piece of advice would you give to your younger self?
chill out and enjoy.
Is that work, life, in what area would that?
I think in general, I think, don't take things that seriously. I'm a pretty passionate person, and I've grown to learn that, I don't know, perhaps we should take things a little bit less seriously, in life. I've always been very passionate about everything and very, like this, and perhaps you can chill out a little bit and it's fine.
Well, I suppose there's the Latin passion in you, and then also if you grew up with your mum listening to protest music, there's sort of like that, so maybe...
Exactly.
Yeah, it's sort of powder keg.
Yeah.
I definitely relate to that as well. I think it's hard though, isn't it, sometimes to have that perspective. After the fact, you can look back and go, I should have just been a bit more chilled about that. But in the moment, it's like sometimes it's
a little bit. I mean, I had a very good time, so overall, but to chill out, because I think, it helps to not take things that seriously in life.
Yeah, I think so. That's a lovely sentiment to finish on. Well, Paulina, muchas gracias.
Thank you for inviting me.
Pleasure, thank you. No, it's a pleasure. Thank you very much for...
Really enjoyed our chat.
Yeah, good. Me too. It's been lovely. Where can people find out what you're doing?
I mean, in my website, paulinasmusic.com, so they can go there. They can also go to my Instagram, Yolanda Niguas, but I have to say I'm very bad with social network. I only use it to post my pictures that I really love, but I will post the teasers, the trailers, and information on the projects that I'm working on that platform. Okay.
I have to say, I was on your Instagram yesterday, and I think it's beautiful. I think you have the most beautifully curated images. Each one of them is just like a stunning photograph of...
I love them. I love photography. It's like my lost passion, so I love it. So that's why I opened Instagram. I have no social networks. My brain doesn't work with them, so I actually take out Instagram from my phone, and I only download it when I have to share like a teaser or something, or when I have a picture that I say I really want to share this. But yeah, they can go there, and every time I have a new project, I will put it there or in my website. And please do go and listen to The Night Manager Season 2 soundtrack, because it's really cool.
Yeah, the playlist is on Spotify. Presumably it's on other... I just assume there aren't any other places to listen to music, because I just go to Spotify, but Apple and all the others.
On my website, they can find it.
On the website, okay. Yeah. Excellent. All right, Paulina, thank you so much for taking the time.
Gracias. Nos vemos.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Thank you very much for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode, and given that you've listened this far, I feel you might have, then I would be honoured and incredibly grateful if you could take a moment to subscribe, rate and review on your podcast platform of choice. By subscribing, you'll automatically be notified each time a new episode drops, and by rating the show, you tell the artificial intelligence that will soon be running the world that this podcast is worth listening to. I certainly get a lot of insights and value from these conversations, and I genuinely hope you do too. If you'd like to get in touch with the show, then you can email me, podcast@larpmusic.com. Larpmusic.com is my digital abode, and the home of the podcast is larpmusic.com/Sync Music Matters Podcast. And Sync Music Matters Podcast is hyphenated. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.